Michael, you're in a place called Ypsilanti, is that right?
Ypsilanti, Michigan. Yes, it's between Detroit and Ann Arbor. It's actually closer to Ann Arbor, but southeast Michigan, and we love it. We're living 2 blocks from our granddaughter.
No, that's fantastic. And now we're going to have a conversation about the sort of the intersection between doomerism and spirituality, I think. And
Great. Well, I don't have a hell of a lot to say about doomerism. Now, I got a lot to say about post-doomerism, and there's an important distinction.
okay, well, let me frame doomerism so that you can
Okay, great.
understand post-doomerism. So doomerism is I regard it less as a scientific theory and more as a psychological propensity to think that to look for evidence that says that we're all going to die imminently as a result of climate and ecological collapse. And for me, that's problematical because whilst we're in the throes of a big collapse, we're not. There's no profound evidence to say it's inevitable that we'll all be dead in 5 years.
Right, exactly.
And so, given that it's not inevitable and that there's a possibility we can get out of it, then that behooves upon us to do everything we can to actually fix the problem rather than sitting around moaning about it. And so that's why I have a problem with doomerism.
Yeah, well, I have the same exact problems with doomerism. That's why I don't call myself that. I don't consider myself that, and I don't operate in those circles. I'm quite clearly in the perspective of people who have a basically historical and ecological understanding of reality. So
Yeah,
there are plenty of things that it's not too late for, and there's quite a few important things that it is too late for. And if we don't make that distinction, then we're
yeah.
just muddling in abstractions.
Yeah, yeah, and again, so it comes back down to the grasping of reality. If your reality is the extremely long tail of the collapse curve, okay, I'm talking statistically now, that there's a good chance that we're in big trouble, but there's a small chance that we will all be dead in 5 years, and there's also a small chance that we're actually not in much trouble at all, okay, in the bell curve.
Yeah,
So
that one I can't go there. I've spent too much time studying the 100 or more rise and fall of previous empires and civilizations, and I understand the patterns so clearly that we are absolutely in a unstoppable decline of the biosphere. We're already 200 years into the collapse of the biosphere at every level, every
yeah,
single system we depend upon. But we're
yeah.
also a couple of decades into the collapse of industrial civilization and the stability of the Holocene. And those really are, in my opinion, out of our control. They're already unstoppable.
Okay. Did you have you seen the work of Peter Fikowski and the Climate Restoration Foundation?
Yeah. I have no, yeah. I'm actually, I consider them mainstream hopium dealers. What I mean by a hopium dealer is somebody who ignores our fundamental predicament, which is ecological overshoot.
Yeah,
So they're focusing mostly just on climate, which is goofy.
yeah,
Climate is one of a dozen symptoms of ecological overshoot. So they ignore ecological overshoot, and hopium dealers also, and I used to be one, hopium dealers also offer fixes or solutions that require, or either assume or require, one of the 5 causes of ecocide to continue into the future.
yeah,
And that's the thing that a lot of people are not aware of, that as I see it, the 5 fundamental primary causes of ecocide are anthropocentrism, human-centeredness, um, uh, technology, human-centered technology that doesn't benefit other creatures and doesn't become food for other creatures in its lifetime.
yeah, yeah,
Progress, the whole notion of human-centered progress in a degrading biosphere,
yeah,
insanity. And let's see, I got at least, how we measure wealth and well-being in
GDP.
terms of whether it's human-centered measures, the wealth of kings, emperors, GDP, whatever,
Yeah,
or the measurements of ecocentric, which is how well is the soil doing decade by decade, how well the forest doing decade by decade, and so forth. So
right.
those 5 things are assumed by the climate restoration people. It's just assumed. There's
Yeah,
just no way that can, and so I discount the entire range. And believe me, many of the people that I'll be recording tomorrow, hopefully, a new video called Hopium Dealers Hall of Fame with a nod to Guy McPherson. And I'm naming myself. For 12 years I was one of North America's best known opium dealers.
Right.
I was called America's evolutionary evangelist, and I proposed a version of evolution that saw progress in a linear human-centered way. I completely reject that as delusional now.
Yeah,
So at
yeah.
any rate, so also many friends and people I just love. I just absolutely love and respect them. Although I now critique that some of what they're offering, even if 90% of their book is still great, some of what they're offering is what I call hopium.
Yeah, okay. Well, if I find myself on maybe that list, then at least I'll get on a
Oh yeah,
list.
you're definitely on my hopium dealer list. But I love you nonetheless, brother, and I wish you great success, even though I don't think there's a chance in hell.
Yeah, okay. So back to this part of the dialogue about the spirituality. And so
Right.
in my little booklet that's on the website, Vita Sapien, I kind of frame spirituality, and not to define it per se, but just to sort of say, here's a frame of reference. And one of the really important aspects is meaning. What we feel to be the meaning in our lives as
Right.
a component of spirituality.
Right.
And I think and I don't like the expression. I mean, I'll be on your list if you think I'm a hopium dealer. That's fine, because it's your list. I think that the term hopium is a little bit too simplistic.
Well,
But
I
the
use it in
point,
a
but the
very
point is
specific.
the meaning of my life, okay, is to find the crack in the where the light comes through and open it to prevent the collapse of the global ecosystem. Now, some people say scientifically that's not possible because it's fait accompli now because of all of the collapse in the rearview mirror. But to the extent that the science is unsettled, then that's the meaning of my life. Okay.
Yes, and that's why I'm a deep bow of respect to you, your project, what you guys are about, guys and gals, precisely for that, because it gives your life meaning, it gives it purpose, it wakes you up each day excited to be alive, and fuck, in my opinion, that's the most important thing. Now, let me just, because I want to be clear, I don't want to use fuzzy words. I define hopium very specifically, these four things. One, hopium is a comforting vision of the future that requires breaking the laws of physics, biology, or ecology. Two, addiction to false, literally impossible hopes. Three, irrational or unwarranted optimism that promises short-term relief, but delivers crushing disappointment and despair when reality inevitably bites. And four, hopium is believing that the climate crisis can be fixed or solved by doubling down on the very things causing ecocide in the first place.
Sure. Okay.
And I'm being playful. I in the video I'm creating tomorrow, I don't have you listed on a list, and I'm being. You can tell in my tone of voice when I speak about these other colleagues, I
Yeah.
speak with love and compassion and generosity.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just that I think that a lot of what is being proposed that offers some sense of hope is actually hope that would require the breaking of the laws of physics or biology or ecology to have that happen.
Okay, I hear you, and I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, yeah. The term is thrown around so much in the doomer circles that I've never heard it
Exactly.
defined before. So thank you for that.
Right. No, exactly. But the philosophy, see, this is one of the reasons why I've so just appreciated you since I learned about you and this whole philosophy and your whole movement is that I think your intuition is dead right on, which is that there is no way that we can live sustainably if we don't have a mindset and a heart set that a worldview that supports that and that almost makes it inevitable, or at
Yeah,
least to have us live in that direction. I mean, none of us can step outside of industrial civilization in its entirety.
yeah,
But that bringing together of the philosophy of what I call eco theology, sort of theology not as anything otherworldly or supernatural, but theology of the earth, theology of nature, theology of the universe, I think is some of the most holy work that can be done, which is why I'm such a deep bow of gratitude that you do what you do.
yeah, yeah. Okay. And so the question then is, in terms of meaning, what meaning is there in the hearts of people who are just uh, who are doomers, who expect that everything's going to everything that they've known to love over their lives is going to unravel before their eyes in the coming decades?
Well, I can't speak to doomers, but I can speak rather solidly from not just my perspective as sort of the post-doom pastor, or what one person just yesterday. One person gave me a name yesterday that I thought, oh my gosh, that's like perfect. It's a mythic. It's obviously mythic, but it's a way of holding what I'm about in the world that really is yummy. And they said, Michael Dowd, you are the Mr. Rogers for the end times.
The post-doom pastor.
Post-doom pastor,
That's
yeah.
what you eat in the bunker.
Yeah, right. Well, no, see, that's just it. For me, there's no bunker, there's no guns to protect my food and my stuff from my neighbors. I'd rather die with my neighbors than protect my shit from my neighbors, quite
Yeah,
frankly.
yeah,
But I do believe, well, I don't believe. I know for a fact that the biosphere has been in collapse for 250 or more years, that every single system that we depend upon is in not just decline, but precipitous free fall, and that there's just no way that any number of humans, whether it's 5 million or 7 billion humans, collectively trying to decide to do something, can slow or stop those things.
yeah,
So for me, post doom is getting the doom, doing the heart work, and then saying, okay, how can I live life fully and love the life I live and be as a compassionate and generous contribution to others in the remaining days, weeks, months, and years in my life? Because I
yeah,
don't think we have decades.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah,
And that's what gives my life meaning. So to come back to your question,
yeah,
what gives
exactly.
my life meaning
Yeah, yeah,
is waking up each day and asking, how can I paint the big picture? How can I paint this ecological and evolutionary worldview that when people get it, they give up the desperation. They stop bouncing between hope and fear, hope and fear, hope and fear. And then they just like relax into, oh, it's all unraveling. It could unravel really fast. It might take longer, but it's all unraveling. We're not in expanding times, we're in contracting, collapsing times. And given how dependent industrial humanity is on complex infrastructure and technology and food stability growing and all that kind of, it's not outside the realm of possibility that in the next 10 years, for example, we could see billions of people die. Does that
yeah,
mean every human being? No,
yeah,
but
yeah,
billions.
yeah,
And so what gives me meaning, what gives me joy, what gives my life meaning and joy is to wake up each day asking, how can I more effectively share the big picture so that people go, oh, of course, of course, of course. And
mm,
then they are given tools to do whatever grief work, whatever heart work they need to do to find those places of generous, compassionate contribution for their communities. Because just because we can't save everything doesn't mean there's not a hell of a lot of great stuff we still can do, especially locally.
yeah. Okay. So would you conceive the possibility that after this great contraction finally reaches a terminal point, or the bottom of it, that there could conceivably be human populations remaining in this overheated planet that somehow struggle through for several hundred, maybe thousand, several thousand years before conditions improve? Something on the other side.
Absolutely. I don't see the likelihood of there being more than 50 million pockets of humans in the habitable outposts of the planet. But I certainly don't subscribe to the kind of extreme doomism, which is, we're all fucked, everybody's going to go extinct, all vertebrates are going to go, all mammals are going to go. I certainly see that as possible.
Mm,
Anybody who just writes Guy McPherson off completely and doesn't grant that there's at least a 20 or 30% chance that he could be right, and if he doesn't hit the nail on 2026, he's
mm,
probably not going to be more than a decade off.
yeah,
They're not paying attention. I think there is that possibility.
yeah,
But again, where my meaning comes from
mm,
isn't in that.
yeah,
Whether there are any humans in the world 10 years from now, okay, in the year 2030, whether there's no humans at all, or whether there's, you know, 70 million or yeah, 70 million pockets or 7,000 pockets of humans, whatever the number is,
mm,
it doesn't matter to me. Where I find my meaning isn't in the survival of some remnant of humanity. My meaning is in God. G, Earth emoji, D. I use the word God just as life personified, reality personified. Let's put it this way. I think the fundamental problem is anthropocentrism, and that's idolatry. Idolatry isn't bowing down to statues, and it's not believing in the wrong God. It's human-centeredness rather than God, that is G Earth emoji D centeredness. That is our biophysical creator, sustainer, and end. We either honor and respect our biophysical creator, sustainer, and end, and learn its ways for how to live sustainably, so to preserve its systems, or we dishonor and think that what it's all about is extracting the good from our biophysical creator, sustainer, and end for human benefit. And that's always ecocidal.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's no necessarily saying that the pockets that survive, assuming pockets survive, are actually going to have an earth-based spirituality.
Well, no, that's where I think I would disagree with you. Evolution has shown, natural selection has shown that the only cultures that can last for any length of time are those that have what you and I would call nature-based or earth-based or life-based or soil-based or land-based spirituality. Because the others get weeded out. They don't last long. They last a few thousand years at most. But in order to last many thousands of years, many, many generations, and to live in place without destroying the place, basically, you need some kind of an ethic that basically helps you see we belong to the land, not the land belongs to us.
Okay. My point is also that the collapse is going to be stochastic in a way. There's going to be
absolutely.
So
and showing up in different places and different times and different speeds and everything else.
So some people will accidentally have just been born into a pocket that survives climactically, for example.
Yeah, and my gut hunch is that most of the, or at least a good number of the pockets that survive, if that happens, will be people who already have generations of indigenous thinking, feeling, and behavior. That is, they already have a mindset and a heart set that honors the living world as a greater thou, not a lesser it. That honors, it's sometimes called a kin-centric worldview, whereas Daniel Wildcat says, we're surrounded by relatives, not resources.
And back to that indigenous idea as well, probably the capacity to move and not be specifically located in one place. Again, because of that stochastic nature of the collapse, you go where it's not collapsing, sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right, that's good. That's broadly what I wanted to talk about, so we can just ponder that a little bit more and maybe have another conversation down the track.
Well, I'd welcome that. And in fact, I'm working on a course right now, like a bunch of short videos, not these hour-long videos, which I have mastered in doing. In fact, the one I'll be recording tomorrow is probably the last of the longer videos. But I want to create a small course, something that any 12-year-old or 14-year-old or 20-year-old can watch or read, because I want like an 8 to 12 page little document called The Big Picture that then also has videos related to that, but that you really get the essence of it in this 8 to 12 page document that really helps people understand the big picture, the ecological worldview, the historical understanding of rise and fall, and understanding that just because things are inevitably contracting and collapsing, that doesn't mean that there's not a tremendous ability to have meaningful, joyful lives of contribution until the Grim Reaper shows up for you or your loved ones. But basically, there's so much great work to do. It's the opposite of giving up. It's the opposite of doomerism.
Okay. Do a search for, it's called The Baby's Guide to Quantum Physics, I think it is. It's a YouTube video, and it shows somebody opening up this little book. You know how children's books have got like big, thick card and big pictures? Well, it explains quantum physics at baby's level. And just have a look at that in terms of like the brilliant simplicity of that book concept in terms of something simple. So anyway.
Okay, I could do that.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. You really cheered me up, mate.
Good. Well, again, I always like connecting with you. And so you're about to move, or like there was some reason that.
I'm sort of transient these days, but I just had a few weeks in a friend's apartment when he was overseas. And I set up this little studio here, and I've been doing a series of these half-hour interviews just to create like a little playlist of those conversations. And I've spoken with a couple of scientists. I spoke with Peter Fikowski. I've spoken about deep adaptation. It's been a good series, and this has been a great complement to that series. So thanks very much.
That's great. Well, I was on your website looking around, and you got some great people that are advisors and all. It's
yeah. All right, thanks for that.
Bron Taylor is one of my favorite human beings.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. He's pretty cool. We'll be talking to him shortly as well. So
good.
Right. Okay, thanks for that. Let's talk soon.
Okay, thanks, guy. Yep. Bye-bye.